It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
And I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. Here we are. Welcome to Red Eye Radio. Good morning. You know, looking at that story about the IRS whistleblower who alleges that the team investigating it, and he's part of the team, has been removed. The complete investigating team is off the case of Hunter Biden. And some interesting ways to look at it, including, I want to play this audio cut from Miranda Devine at the New York Post yesterday. Here's what she had to say.
Look, I think this is worse than retaliation against a whistleblower. This is obstruction of justice. This is the Department of Justice intervening in a very sensitive case, being Hunter Biden, the tax case against Hunter Biden, the son of the president. And we have been told for nigh on 3 years that this Department of Justice was so honourable and Merrick Garland was so perfect that this was going to be an arm's length independent investigation, and that Joe Biden prides himself on allowing it all to go the course without any interference.
Right.
And that has been a complete lie.
You know, it's interesting when she said that, because you think about it. Remember what this IRS whistleblower is claiming. The IRS whistleblower is claiming that they had the case a year ago to charge Hunter Biden, haven't charged him.
Right.
And what he's saying is that it's the Department of Justice, it's Merrick Garland that is keeping this prosecution from going forward. That's what the whistleblower claims.
Right.
And so he also claims that when Merrick Garland testified before Congress and said that the Delaware federal attorney, is it David Weiss? Yes. That he has full authority to prosecute, and that Merrick Garland has stayed out of it completely, that he lied to Congress. So think about those charges from the whistleblower, and then what happens is the entire investigative team investigating Hunter Biden is taken off the case completely.
Right.
The perception is, because we don't know the full reality, but the perception, which is incredibly strong here, based on what the whistleblower did, is, and I think she makes a great point, because the word is, it was the Department of Justice that did this. It wasn't somebody within the IRS that said the team's off. It was an order from the Department of Justice saying, you're off of this.
Right.
Well, you tell me that the perception of that doesn't stink of obstruction of justice right there. I think she made a great point.
Well, and then you look at where they now have dismantled the team that was looking into it. You know, you could have the back and forth about whether or not that amounts to retaliation, but there's no doubt they wanted to go in and clean house and ensure that the whistleblower is no longer going to be attached to that investigation.
Right. But you haven't heard, remember, this comes, again, from the whistleblower's lawyers, right? Where did the first story come from? Yeah, okay, it was whistleblower lawyers. Okay, whistleblower lawyers. Because you don't have the Department of Justice coming out and saying, because I would want an immediate response to that, wouldn't you? If you were doing it saying, look, we don't want this whole thing caught up in the whistleblower, so we'll replace the team, and we have qualified investigators that have been prepped by everybody, but the new investigators are on the case. They didn't say that. There's been nothing from the Department of Justice on it, and I have a feeling if Merrick Garland goes before Congress, he'll just say, we don't discuss ongoing cases.
No, I mean, that's exactly what you do. You keep it under your umbrella, and, well, this is a big investigation, or this is an investigation that we're handling now, and blah, 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 blah. This is no longer in the hands of the IRS. But you look at all the cover that was, given by Merrick Garland and the whole documents thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I mean,
right.
You're going to work to take everything and to that extent or for that purpose, it really works better than having a special prosecutor, because we've been throwing around the idea of a special prosecutor, which would, you assign a special prosecutor, the story's out there, it's already out there, you assign it at the DOJ, it would be Merrick Garland who assigns it, and then they take their time. It's years before we learn anything, and it's basically on the shelf all that time, and you're not going to learn anything. Well, this actually has the same effect. The DOJ goes into the IRS. They take everything. They dismantle the team. You guys are no longer on this. This is now a DOJ matter, and we can't talk about it because it's a DOJ matter. It's right now a current investigation, and we're not going to talk about it.
And it just disappears.
And it just disappears.
And the whistleblowers cases, well, this was done a year ago.
Right.
We had enough evidence a year ago, and Weiss cannot make the decision. The Department of Justice is making the decision. And at the same time, and I think what made the whistleblower come forward is Merrick Garland, what was it, a little over a month ago, whatever, when he was testifying, saying, no, it's completely independent. Weiss can do whatever he wants on this. We're not involved in it. And,
right.
and that's where he said that Garland is lying to Congress about that right. isn't true.
Right.
And so when the Department of Justice is the one that removes it, yet they're the one that the whistleblower and that kind of order had to come from Merrick Garland, who in the Department of Justice, because the IRS is their own, they do their own investigations.
Right.
They're a part of the Department of Justice, of course, the investigative arm of it. But they they're under the authority, but they act independently as, IRS investigators, and the investigating team is from the Department of Justice because they work for Weiss.
Yeah, I mean, this is one way that you have.
Let me rephrase that. You have investigators that work specifically for the IRS, but this was part of Weiss's team, which is part of the Department of Justice.
Right.
Yeah. So let me make sure I get that correct there.
Right.
So at that point, but the whole point is that Weiss isn't making the call. This is coming. The reason that there has been no prosecution is because the higher-ups at the Department of Justice, which is Merrick Garland, doesn't want it to go forward. I mean, that's what the whistleblower is claiming, because his case was done, he's saying, a year ago.
Right.
So then they take everybody off it. Do they put the same are they putting new investigators in? Will those questions be answered? Or when Merrick Garland is put before Congress again and asked that question, does he simply say, we don't discuss ongoing, and then this thing just
no, that's exactly what
goes out, just continues for the rest of the Biden administration?
I'm not going to discuss any ongoing investigation.
By the way, you're not allowed to remove, from what I've seen in the whistleblower law, you're not allowed to remove them from their position. Now they haven't been fired.
He hasn't been fired. So are you splitting the hairs here and saying, well, but you're reassigning, but he still has a job?
And will the Department of Justice, how old is this whistleblower story?
Weeks.
And the removal of the investigation team is what, 2 days old, 3 days old?
Right.
2 days?
No, it happened. I was just thinking that a moment ago. It happened after the whistleblower came out, as far as we know.
Oh, yeah. That's what the lawyers are saying, right. And I think that story's 2 days old. Nothing from the Department of Justice.
Right.
Nothing from Merrick Garland.
And while technically this may not be retaliation toward the whistleblower, it is an action to I would say it's an action to circumvent the whistleblower process.
So is it obstruction of justice?
I would say
that would be
quite possibly rises to that.
And that's why we asked the same question on Comey earlier when we were talking about, well, Comey knew then this goes to the other case. This goes to the Russia collusion. Comey knew that Hillary was trying to set up Trump.
Right.
He knew what Hillary He knew exactly what Hillary was doing because we know that Brennan told him and told Obama, told Biden, told Comey, told Loretta Lynch. They all knew. They all knew what Hillary was doing, and they said it was a good verifiable source. That was what they had. They knew what Hillary was going to do. She did it, and Comey said, "Let's go with it."
Right.
And so I ask at that point the fact of when, and let me ask you this question. Is that one of the reasons that he did go after Hillary later on? Was he afraid of what he was doing at that point might be viewed as obstruction of justice? Because remember, they were trying to get Trump on obstruction of justice, and I go, Trump on obstruction of justice? Comey knew what the truth was and didn't question anything. But if you look at here with Merrick Garland, by doing this, and the order had to come from Merrick Garland, is that obstruction of justice? I think Miranda Devine makes a great point. Is that how you look at it now?
Well, because you can't, this whole autonomy thing for the AG is bogus.
Oh, yeah.
This, at the very least, is highly suspicious activity that warrants other eyes to be on it.
With everything going on, it's something that the day you're going to do it, you announce it and you explain why as Attorney General, because you wish to be transparent with the American public as much as you can in an investigation that's this highly sensitive. You hold some type of press conference. You just don't do it and allow the whistleblower's lawyers to be the one that break the story, because that's why the perception is, as I stated earlier, that's one of the reasons the perception is this is obstruction of justice. They want this thing buried.
Well,
that's the perception you get out of it.
And does Merrick Garland believe in part that he can use the Durham report as a little bit of a smoke bomb distraction? In the meantime, this has happened roughly about the same time frame of the reassignment of this investigation.
Yeah. Probably, I don't think it's going to stop Republicans. So
no, I don't think it will. Long term, it won't.
It's not going to stop anything. But but why didn't Garland? I would, if I'm going to make. If I know, look, he knows how the table is set out there right now, with what the whistleblowers are saying, and what the IRS whistleblower said. And so at that point, if you're saying, look, I need to protect this investigation, I don't want the complication of a whistleblower in the investigative unit, so I'm going to put in a new investigative unit of highly qualified people and remove this investigative unit. We're not firing anybody. Wouldn't you want to make that clear to the American public if you truly wanted transparency and you were attempting to be autonomous and independent of anybody?
Yeah, you would. I would. But I don't think Merrick Garland does.
Bill Barr would have.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're covering your backside.
Yeah. You're covering your backside, but you're also, if you truly believe in autonomy and you wish to promote the fact that the Department of Justice is autonomous and we're not doing a favor for the president, and you wish to promote that to the public, that's why you do it.
Yeah. Ultimately, yeah. But at the very least, wouldn't you want to save yourself?
Yeah. And Garland,
unless you believe you're going to have cover forever, that no one's going to come after you for it, that nobody's going to find out about it.
We know that Garland has, when was the last time he held a very quick press conference when something happened, and boom, he was out there.
Yeah.
Right. I want to set the story straight. Why hasn't he been out there the last month trying to set the story straight?
Right.
Questions. 866-90 Red Eye.
New ERA and PACE. Acronyms for two new federal rural energy funding programs announced by Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack.
There is $1 billion being placed in the Powering Affordable Clean Energy program. PACE provides loans, a portion of which can be forgiven in connection with the development of renewable energy projects or energy storage. The Rural Utility Service will also be investing $9.7 billion through the new Empowering Rural America program, or new ERA. This program is exclusively for rural electric cooperatives.
He says these Inflation Reduction Act funded investments
is enabling the Rural Utility Service to advance the single largest investment in rural electrification since the Rural Electrification Act of 1936.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report is made possible by Cenex Roadmaster XL Premium Diesel and Citgo Lubricants.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, the show's interfering with my reading.
Yeah,
and I don't. You and I were talking about the whole whistleblower process. That this IRS agent first had to go. You're supposed to go to your supervisor first.
Well,
but if you believe your supervisor is involved in any of this, then you go to the IG,
or that there would be a threat against you if
right.
you went to your supervisor. Then you go directly to the IG, and in this case, it is reported that the whistleblower went. One of the disclosures went to the U.S. Treasury Inspector General. So then, at that point in the process, the IG can reach out to members of Congress, and our question would be: all right, did that happen? What do we know about the IG that's involved here, and or where the case is, the whistleblower case is overall? We've been in the dark about that, and it's likely why we're not learning anything about the whistleblower other than his lawyers being out there talking about what's going on. You're not going to learn that identity because the process has to be carried out for the protection of the individual who's making the claims. But these are strong claims now that the DOJ has intervened and shut down the investigative team that the whistleblower was on. So you're taken off the case. And we've heard nothing from Merrick Garland.
Yeah, and you and I, we don't know the process of once the Treasury Department IG found out how did this get to Congress. We know that the other whistleblower, not the IRS whistleblower, but the one that said, Biden took a bribe, that whistleblower somehow got in contact with Grassley. I don't know who got it. I'm going back and Google to look here. I don't see yet who was actually informed, Comer or Grassley.
Right.
And Grassley would go to Comer because the Senate won't investigate anything because they're Democrat.
Right. Yeah, I'm very curious about the process in both. And because we've heard nothing about the IG, maybe they've talked about it, and I just didn't hear it.
Right.
But you would think that they would want to shed some light on the process.
Remember, the whistleblower last week, the attorneys met with Congress last week.
Mm-hmm. Right.
With the,
mm-hmm.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Friday Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, I think I've got things straight here. Hopefully I do. There's too many scandals to keep track of. All right, this IRS, because we were wondering, this IRS whistleblower that came forward is actually an IRS criminal supervisory special agent.
Yeah.
So here's my point. I guess this would be my point. Was it IRS agents, then criminal special agents, working for David Weiss in the Department of Justice? Or does David Weiss have his own Department of Justice investigators, and they're using a lot of the information? Are they working separately, or are they working in tandem with the IRS criminal special agents? That's what I don't know.
It would make sense that they would be working in tandem, but
yes.
I don't know.
And so, what he is stating is, they had the evidence. Now, attorneys for the IRS whistleblower who allege that there is political interference at the Justice Department in the Hunter Biden criminal investigation met with congressional investigators last Friday to lay the groundwork for what their client hopes to share with Congress, according to sources familiar with the matter. The attorneys privately offered investigators from the Democrat-led Senate Finance Committee and the Republican-led House and Ways Committee a glimpse of the information their client could share with Congress. The sources said such a disclosure is typical or an early step in whistleblower cases involving sensitive tax information. Republican aide with the Ways and Means Committee said they anticipate an in-person interview with the whistleblower in the near future. The whistleblower alleges that Delaware U.S. Attorney David Weiss and his ability to bring charges in the case is being thwarted by political appointees. That would contradict promises by Attorney General Merrick Garland in congressional testimony that Weiss has full authority to make final decisions on whether to prosecute President Joe Biden's son. And that's where they claim that he didn't tell the truth to Congress.
Right.
That's where Merrick Garland didn't tell the truth. Last month, the attorney for the whistleblower wrote to a handful of House and Senate committee leaders expressing his client's interest in making protected whistleblower disclosures to Congress. The attorney said his client, an unnamed IRS criminal supervisory special agent, has been overseeing the ongoing and sensitive investigation of a high-profile controversial subject, which the source has confirmed was Hunter Biden. So there you go. The IRS whistleblower claims to have information that contradicts sworn testimony to Congress by a senior political appointee, according to the letter from his attorney, that senior political appointee, Merrick Garland, is what sources are telling all the news outlets. And nobody has yet stated. And Garland has been completely quiet on this, completely quiet. So the target is Garland here. And so who approved of the entire investigative team being thrown off?
Right. Yeah, because according to the whistleblower lawyers, it was made at the request of the DOJ.
The DOJ, right.
That goes right up to Merrick Garland.
Right. And that's where the first thing in an investigative mind at that point is obstruction of justice. Well, at least to this totally nonpartisan investigator, as I would always be in any investigation.
Well, the thing is that...
And there was no sarcasm there. Well, it sounded like there was.
you take everything, you put it in the box, and, put it over in the office closet at the University of Pennsylvania, and you sit on it if you're Merrick Garland, and you just deem it an open case. Mm-hmm. You know, that was kind of my point before, is that it's actually better than a special prosecutor.
Yeah, everything's an open case. You just
now it's
never
an
bring
open
it.
case, and I'm not going to comment on it. It's an open case. How long will it take? Well, we don't put a clock on such things. How dare you? We're about justice. I can't talk about it. It's an open case, and it remains an open case forever.
Which is then why you hope that this whistleblower starts talking, and then other whistleblowers come forward too. That's what you would hope.
That's what you would hope. I guess the question would be, because, you know, the claim is that Weiss's investigation is being thwarted by an appointee, Garland, and that that basically hands are being tied here. That because the investigation is over, and nothing is really it's largely over. This adds to it, by the way, I would say. You gotta determine whether there's been any kind of interference or obstruction, as they call it. But you've got this case sitting there, and the whistleblower is saying that there's interference, that Weiss's office is being interfered with. Weiss is, by the way, was an appointee by Trump. I don't know if people know that, but the Department of Justice then comes in and says, no, we're going to take it from here, shuts it down, shuts down basically any ability for the whistleblower to have any part in this investigation going forward. And you can claim all day long till the end of time, you can claim ongoing investigation.
Well, we've heard nothing from Garland, and we've heard nothing from Weiss.
Right.
Because remember, he's not a special counsel.
No. Nope.
But why can't somebody come out and go, that's not true. I am in charge of this case, and nobody has told me any different.
Right.
You notice Weiss hasn't said that.
Right. Well, the question would be, have you been given any directives from the Department of Justice to not comment at all on this case? It's an ongoing case, and you know the protocol. This is an ongoing investigation. You will not talk to the media about it. I mean, you can use that umbrella forever.
Yeah, because we know federal prosecutors talk all the time.
Yep, they do.
Garland says, a case going on.
Garland says, oh, no, Weiss has full authority.
Right.
If he's got full authority, he should be able to talk about it.
All he has to come out and say is...
At least to the extent of whether or not
he is
it's
full authority.
Still in his office.
Yeah, here's the thing. You're not talking about the case.
Right. No, you're not giving details about it. But I do have to wonder if there have been new directives given to Weiss. Why haven't we heard from Weiss? I mean, I know why we haven't heard from Merrick Garland. And if you bring him, you bring Merrick Garland in front of a House committee, I can't talk about it. Ongoing investigation.
Yep.
Not going to talk about it. Ongoing investigation. I will not talk about an ongoing investigation. What are you going to do? You're going to hold him in contempt?
Well, does he have to answer it, outside of the public, if they go into private session?
I don't see why he would.
Because we're not asking you. We're not asking you what you're doing in your investigation.
Yeah, we don't want pertinent details about the investigation. We need to know where it is. Is it in your office? Did you do this?
Right.
And I could see him coming back and saying, sorry, that would compromise the investigation. Because this is who we're dealing with.
The whistleblower says The whistleblower has told us that you are the one that's holding this up from being prosecuted. Is this case closed? Are you looking at new information? You're not actually talking about the case. You're not asking whether you have enough to prosecute him or not, even though the whistleblower is saying they have enough for prosecution and the IRS agents wish to prosecute and believe there's enough to prosecute, and that's what basically the consensus is, which is why he's come forward on this. Is it true? Are you holding it up? We're not asking whether he's guilty or not. We're not even asking you whether there's enough evidence to find him guilty. We're asking, are you holding this up? Have you put out any orders holding this up in any way? That's what we're asking. Because you can go the other way and say, we're not going to file charges, and it's done that way too.
Mm-hmm.
Is what the whistleblower saying true? Well, that's a way to ask it. The whistleblower has said this, and that. Is this true?
Does Weiss still have authority in this investigation? You said recently he did. We're led to believe now that at least since then, at the very least since then, that has changed. Has it changed? I would want Merrick Garland in front of a committee yesterday.
See, and the problem is in this case, it's not inaccurate to say that Hunter Biden did break the law and evade taxes. We all know he did.
Right. The question is, will they charge him for it?
Right. That's the only question. Will they charge him for it? Because it was the evasion of taxes, not reporting it.
Right.
It wasn't that he couldn't pay the taxes.
Right.
So we know that at this point. So what a mess.
Well, Hunter's lawyers a few weeks ago running to the DOJ. What was that about? That had everybody in the media speculating, oh, man, there's got to be an indictment coming down.
Well, remember the whole thing was, you better do something quick because you're going to have, they're going to charge. They're going to charge Hunter Biden. Mm-hmm. And remember, Comer, you better not charge Hunter until we have our say.
Mm-hmm.
And there was that thought process that they were ready to prosecute last week.
Right.
Now it's like, is there any interest in prosecuting at all ever?
Yeah, or was there ever?
Yeah. 866-90-RED-I.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I'm telling you, this thing's going to blow one of these days because it keeps getting more intense and more intense. The screws keep getting tightened, from both sides here on this.
Yeah.
It's just like, where's this thing going to end?
Right.
With everything that's going on
now.
Well,
I would think that the Democratic Party would want this, if there's going to be an indictment, to happen sooner than later. You don't want this happening in the summer of 2024. The cops or the FBI shows up at the convention, taking Hunter out in handcuffs. I mean, it's not going to happen that way. But the fact of the matter is,
in Chicago,
I would love it. That'd be funny. But the idea would be to get it off the table and then get it in the bubble of yesterday as soon as possible. And then the president just trying to, just we disagree, and his lawyers are working on that. I'm not going to really comment on it. This isn't about me. And the problem is that it is.
It is about him.
And it always points toward him, and there's no way around that. So then what is your other option? Well, your other option is Merrick Garland steps in, and he takes it out of the hands of Weiss. He puts it in a box, open case, puts the lid on the box, puts it in a closet somewhere. It's an ongoing case. I can't comment. And you play that until the end of time.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.